Blog Talk Radio. Hello, and welcome to the Stress is Stressing Me Out podcast. I am your host, Maki Adeyemi. I'm hoping everyone is having a good evening, whether you're in quarantine or partial quarantine. Last week we had our very first episode, which we would call the zero episode, where I explained the goals of this podcast as well as I introduced myself to the listening audience. If you didn't get a chance to listen to that, you can find the episode at Spotify and tune in. You can also pull it down from blogtalkradio.com. At Spotify and tune in, you can subscribe to this podcast. As always, if you have any questions, comments, you can send an email at sismo1875@gmail.com. That is Sismo, stress is stressing me out, at 1875@gmail.com. I will be looking out for emails, and there again, you can ask anything. You can relate stories, ask questions. I'll even take requests of different topics people want to hear about, and I will do my research and do my best to bring that to you. Tonight is our first episode. We will be discussing what is stress and how it affects the body. I want to start off with some stats, or at least one stat. This particular statistic came out June of 2020, so last year, last summer. And this statistic said that 65% of individuals are stressed. And I would have thought it would be more than that, since we were pretty much in the throes of the coronavirus pandemic then. I would think people would be more stressed, but in 2021, I believe that percentage is a little bit higher. So the information I'm going to give you is coming from WebMD. That is my reference. I didn't get a chance to reference the statistic where it came from. I guess I should have done that. But the information I'm going to give you now, or in this podcast, all comes from WebMD, webmd.com. You can go there and you can find this information as well as a great explanation as to what these things are. So first of all, let's talk about what is stress. Okay, we all have an idea of what we think stress is, but according to WebMD, stress is the body's reaction to stressful situations or harmful situations. It also stimulates the fight or flight reaction. It is also called the stress response. So let's think about a time we all had a stress response happen to us. So let's say, for example, you were driving and someone pumped their brakes in front of you and they stopped short. So you have to pump your brakes quick so you don't hit them. I know I've had that happen to me. In fact, I just had it happen recently. And when you're in that situation, your heart rate goes up, your muscles get tight, and your blood pressure rises. And this is how you protect yourself. Also here, WebMD says stress means something different to everyone. Some people can function while under stress. Some people say they do their best work while they're under stress. You may know someone like that. I know a couple of people who are like that, who like to wait at the last minute when things are due at work or a project or some kind of paper is due. They wait to the last minute to get it completed because I guess it's the adrenaline rush of, the possibility of not getting it done, but they eventually get it done. So um they put themselves under that stress. Um you may have stress from other people. And other people meaning it could be friends, it could be family members, it could be your coworkers, your colleagues, it could be anybody. And we know stress that it is draining and it wears you down. So that's the definition of what stress is, or at least according to WebMD, what their definition of stress of what stress is. So let's talk about the effects on the body. There are several things here. And there again, if you go to webmd.com, you can see the outline that they have. So let's talk about some of the stuff, the body stuff that stress affects. As I was researching this, stress can come, stress can cause a multitude of symptoms. One of the first types of symptoms they talked about was emotional stress. And someone who is under emotional stress may easily be agitated, frustrated, and moody. They may be overwhelmed, feeling like they're losing control. They may have problems relaxing. And I know in my own personal life, over the years, I've had this happen to me, especially in my early years when I was a school teacher. I've been teaching since 2001, so 20 years I've been an educator. In the year 2000, when I was 26 years old, I just lost my mother, so I was dealing with the stress in regards to that. And then I had the stress from my administrators, of course, stress from the kids, and having to not only teach the subject, but also be able to maintain classroom management so you can get through teaching the subject. So as I said before, in my early years, there was stress. There were times when I was at home, I was tense about things that were happening at work, and when I was at work, I was tense about things that were going on at home. And like I said, my mother passed away, and that was a sudden thing. And not only did she not only pass away, but she passed away on Thanksgiving Day. And we were just getting ready to sit down to have dinner, and she passed away suddenly. So it will be 20 years this Thanksgiving of her passing. Another emotional symptom is avoiding others. Sometimes you may just want to stay to yourself. You may want to stay in the house. I know when I was going through stressful times, I would turn off all the lights in my house and I would just sit in the dark. I could not even face going out into the sunshine. I just couldn't handle it. I couldn't do it. I couldn't enjoy the blue sky and the sun and just it being a beautiful day. I couldn't handle it. And so not only was I doing that, I didn't go out with my friends. I didn't hang out with them. I didn't want to do anything with them. So if they would call and they would ask me if I wanted to go anywhere, I would tell them no, that I had something to do. And I didn't mention this, but on top of the passing of my mother, all the stress that I was going through as a high school science teacher, I was also in graduate school finishing up my master's or getting my master's in science teaching. And so I had all of that classwork to do and writing papers and doing all the readings. And even today, I'm still in graduate school, but I'm getting another degree in school administration. So it's still a lot of work, a lot of reading, a lot of assignments, a lot of papers you have to do. So it seems like the stress, it never ends. Another part of emotional stress is low self-esteem. And that was interesting because I never thought that low self-esteem would be correlated with stress. I never looked at it as being low self-esteem being a stressful situation, but I guess if you are a young person, a teenager, you're adolescent, you're going through puberty, um, you may have those feelings of low self-esteem, and you constantly have your peers at school who may be bullies, who may be bullying you for whatever reason. So I guess that could be a justification as to why they would place low self-esteem in this category of emotional stress. So therefore, I told you things about myself, and I'm pretty sure all of you out there who are listening, I'm pretty sure you have dealt with different kinds of stressors. As we said before, I talked about school stress, being in graduate school. There's work stress, maybe marriage stress or relationship stress that can hit you emotionally. Yeah, we all have to deal with that, but we all have to have some way to counter that. And hopefully, there again in this podcast, as we go forward, I would have some things, and maybe there's some things that you are doing um, to be able reach out, um, to reach out and talk to someone. And that's why I asked for everybody to email. If you had something, you went through something like this, and this is what helped. This is what helped you. This is what I did. Um, I would even stick therapy in there. Some people need a little bit more than just sunshine and rainbows. You may need a little bit more help with that, and so we have there's therapy, um, counseling if you feel like the stress is making you feel out of control. I know when I was stressed back in the early years, in the early 2000s, I felt that I was out of control, that I couldn't handle what was going on. And I'm the type of person, I do not want to feel that I am out of control. I don't never want to be out of control. Um, it's just who I am. Okay. So the next part of we talked about the emotional part of stress. Now let's talk about the physical parts of stress, because being stressed out, it does have some physical problems that go along with that. And the first one is low energy. Maybe you feel like you don't want to get up out of bed um, in the morning, or you just want to lay around, or you don't feel interested in doing anything with your family or getting anything done, or you have things you have to do, errands you have to run, but you just don't feel like doing it. You just don't want to be bothered with it. So you have low energy. You're tired all the time. Also, maybe you will have headaches all the time. Tension headaches. You may have neck stiffness. I know when I used to have tension headaches, I would get my heating pad and put it on the kind of like the middle setting, because I love heat and I love warmth, and I would just wrap it around my neck and just sit there with my eyes closed. And the headache most of the time would subside, but sometimes I would have to go and grab my Aleve and handle it that way. Also, upset stomach. I know when you are stressed, you feel tightness in your stomach. I know when I am stressed, sometimes I will feel like a fireball come across my stomach. And I'm like, what in the hell is that? And it just felt like a tremendous amount of heat that would just come across my stomach. And my stomach would just knot up. Um, and I will speak more to that when we talk about stress and the people in our lives, because people can stress you out with their situations or their problems that's going on, or they're constantly bombarding you as one thing after another. It never stops. It constantly goes on and on and on and on, and that can cause stress within itself. So we'll get to that. Also, staying with the stomach problems, diarrhea could be a problem. Being nauseated, the reverse of that, you can be constipated. You can have chest pain with rapid heartbeat. There was a few times where I went to the emergency room thinking I was having a heart attack, but I was not. And so that's just part of the fight or flight situation when you are stressed. So you do have chest pain and your heart races because now you have to figure out, well, am I going to fight this person or am I going to break my neck to get out of here to get away from that person or that situation? Another physical problem is insomnia, not being able to go to sleep, just laying there staring at the ceiling sometimes, or just um, your mind is just racing. You can't calm your mind down. You're just constantly thinking about things from your day, things that happened that day, or what's to come the next day. You may have like an evaluation, or your principal wants to evaluate you, or your boss at your job wants to evaluate you, so you may be a little bit tense about that. You may have like a standardized test you have to do well on in order to get to the next level, or in order to get to into graduate school, the GRE or the ACT to get into college. Um, it could be something as small as a play date with your kids, or it could be a date as an adult. So there are a lot of things that could bring about that stress. In regards to the insomnia, I insomnia might is I'll say this: insomnia was not the worst that I had to deal with. Um, I found that drinking tea and just regular tea, some people may think green tea or chamomile tea or lavender tea. There's some people who drink warm milk um, at night that calms them down. Some people drink red wine or wine in general to calm them down, um, to deal with the sleep problem. If you can't relax, you may have to speak to your physician about getting medication for that. But there are some things naturally that you can do to bring yourself down to go to sleep. And I say drinking tea, it may work for some people and it may not. And there again, there are things that work for me. And I'm only telling you the things that work for me. You don't have to do it. But there again, I will welcome anybody who has any kind of information, who went through this, who know the different things that work for them. Some people end up having to go on medication to go to sleep, to combat the insomnia. Um, and that's pretty much all you can do besides the natural in, drinking hot tea or drinking warm milk, or um, there again, drinking wine or alcohol, which I don't endorse because I don't drink myself, so that I don't endorse anybody doing that. But if that's something that calms you, drinking a glass of red or white wine, um, or there are other alcohols out there, I mean, if that helps, I'm not going to judge. Another physical problem in regards to stress is low sex drive. So lack of desire, um, and on both men and women, it can have low sex drive, not wanting to engage in sexual activity because of stress, um, uh, amongst other things. It doesn't necessarily have to be. Um, could be the sex drive, could be lack of desire or whatnot. Um, there again, there are things you can do about that, and we will talk about that in later podcast episodes. So right now, I said a whole lot. Right now, we're going to take a break, a non-commercial break, and we will be right back. Anything that have Reed have to say. Have Reed have to. I'm sorry, I don't like her. Hello, and welcome back to the Stress is Stressing Me Out podcast. Again, I'm your host, Maki Adeyemi. I hope all of you enjoyed the music break that we had. Also, the intro music. I get up and I dance to that. I love the intro music. I also love the in between music when we have to take a break. So I hope all of you enjoyed that. That you got up and you started dancing and moving around. We have been talking about stress and how what is stress and how stress affects the body. So far we talked about the emotional parts of stress and we talked about the physical parts of stress. Now I'm going to talk about the consequence for having stress or the stress consequences. A lot of these consequences may come from family history. I know that I have one of these consequences, stress consequences. There's also a family history, but it could have also come from being stressed as an early school teacher when I was younger. So one of the consequences of stress is heart disease. Another consequence is high blood pressure, which I do have, and there again, there is a family history of it. Being stressed as a school teacher, having stress in my life at that time, it could have just accelerated it, and I had to go on medication. And not one medication, I had to take two medications. And I will tell you this, I was not able to come off of them. I still take them today, 20 plus years later. So it's just one of the things that I have to deal with. Also, another stress consequence is intestinal problems. We talked about having, diarrhea or being constipated or being nauseated. So, you have intestinal problems. We also have another consequence is eating disorders or obesity. You have people who stress eat. People when a little inkling of stress hits, they make a beeline for the refrigerator or the cupboard, and they're stuffing their face with cookies or eating potato chips or whatever the case. And there again, I'm not judging. And then you have the flip side of that, where individuals who are stressed, they don't have an appetite. It takes their appetite away, and they don't eat. When I was under stress, I didn't have an eating disorder, and I don't have one. I didn't have one, but I would not eat. I would not have an appetite. I was constantly just going over and over and over in my mind of the things that happened that day or whatever it was that stressed me out with a kid or some administration said something to me or uh, something happened in the family. So I really, I really didn't have an appetite for anything. If we want to talk deeper about it, and I'm pretty sure everybody knows who this person was. And it's sad that we only know about her because of her eating disorder and not for, the beautiful voice that she had, the singer that she was. And I'm talking about Karen Carpenter. Everybody, if you're in your 40s or older, everybody knows the Carpenters, Karen and Richard Carpenter. Um, Reels did a profile about her. I think it was called Goodbye to Love. It comes on now and again, and if you have cable, you can find it on demand. It is a good documentary about the Carpenters, but it really focused on Karen herself and what she was dealing with up until her death in 1982. Um, just watching that, you can tell that she was under so much stress and being pulled in so many directions. And this is just my opinion. This is not set in stone. This is not written anywhere. This is just my opinion of watching that documentary. And there again, that documentary is called Goodbye to Love. It is on demand, with Charter, Spectrum, I'm not sure about any place else, but I know that I can. You can find it on demand. Reels. They still have it up there. You can watch it if you haven't done so. And there again, this is my opinion about that. Just watching that documentary and just hearing it, and if they're portraying it, if they're portraying the documentary as to what really happened, that these were the real events that happened in her life, she was stressed and she was being pulled by, I mean, just by being controlled and being pulled in every direction. And she, you know, it just took a toll on her. And there again, you can't, sometimes you can't control the stuff externally, so you control what you can control. And with Karen, it was taking control of her weight, and it got out of control, and it took her life in 1982. But there again, that's a good documentary. It focuses on Karen. It talks a little bit about Richard and his struggle and the parents a little bit, but it mainly focused on Karen. So if you are a Karen Carpenter fan or you're a Carpenter fan or whatnot, I urge you to check that documentary out. If you can't find it on demand or you don't have a way to look at it on demand, I would see if it's on YouTube. If somebody put it up on YouTube, it is a good documentary. Another stress consequence is premature ejaculation. So that's men, and with women as well. With men, we said low sex drive, no desire or lack of desire, and wanting to engage in sex. And the other stress consequence is hair, skin in your hair. So if you're stressed, if you're a teenager anyway, or a young adult, if you are stressed, your face just might break out. You may have acne. Um, with your hair, you may lose your hair because of the stress. And some people may literally pull their hair out. Some people's hair goes thin and comes out because of stress, and you lose hair because of stress. Um, so those are the different consequences. Um, the different consequences that stress can cause. And as I said before, during this podcast and the first podcast that I did last week, the goal of this podcast is to combat stress. And there again, I am not a medical doctor. I am not a guru. I don't have a PhD. I'm an everyday person like you who have everyday stressors, who have different situations. Um, we all deal with stress in our own way. And the goals of this podcast going forward is to talk about those ways that stress can be handled. So far we covered what stress is. We talked about the different consequences emotionally and physically that stress can take a toll on. So going forward, we can now talk about what we can do to combat it. Different topics that we can talk about to combat stress. And I invite you, and let me say it again, I invite anybody who has comments, who have questions, who have requests. If you would like to be a guest here on the podcast, on the program, I urge you to send me an email at sismo1875 at gmail.com. That is sismo1875 at gmail.com. I will go through those emails. I will read the emails. I will not use your whole name, but I will read the questions or the comments. I'm interested in knowing and hearing what everybody has to say because we all deal with stress in our own way. Um, some people deal with stress in the wrong way. You know, we can talk about that as well, but I want to cover the positive parts of how we can combat stress and that you can self care and take care of yourself. So I'm willing and wanting to hear from what you, the listeners, have to say. If you're dealing with something very stressful right now, where you need help or you just want someone to hear you. You want to just vent. You were also able to call. Um, I didn't talk about taking live calls, but I can take live calls. Um, I can, if you desire to, you send me an email and you want to come on the show and talk about your particular situation, we can set that up where we can, I can screen you and find out what the problem is, and you are invited to tell your story. And if you're, some of the things that you tried to do or what you were looking for in getting help. So also, if you wanted to call in studio, uh, I can open up the phone lines. Email works best. But if in studio, if you want to call, the area code is 516-418-5483. Usually these shows are pre-recorded, so I don't really get a chance to do any in studio calls, but I can pre-record and still have you call in to the studio, and we can record what you say and whatever you want us to know about your situation. So, with all of that being said, I want to thank all of you listeners from wherever you are around the world, wherever you are. I thank you for listening today. This has been Stress is Stressing Me Out the podcast. Feel free to contact me. I'll say it again, sismo1875 at gmail.com. Tune in next week for another episode. Until then, stay safe. Hello, ladies. I want to talk to you. Have you worn so many weaves and wigs that your hair is damaged? Do you have dry hair, thinning hair, perhaps bald spots? Well, you need Black by Remy's Healthy Hair Serum. It is all natural. It has no chemicals. Easy to use. Bring your hair back to health with Black by Remy's Healthy Hair Serum. For more information, please send an email to blackbyremy at gmail.com. That is blackbyremy at gmail.com.